Welcome to GovConHacks, the go-to podcast for government contractors looking to level up their game. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, we're here to bring you expert tips, actionable advice, and insider knowledge to navigate the complex world of government contracting with confidence. Each week, we break down topics, interview industry leaders, and share real-world strategies to help you win more contracts and grow your business. I'm your host, Ashley Duell, alongside my co-host, Natasha Velez, and together, we're here to help you crack the code of government contracting. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let's get hacking. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining us for our scam alert, how to spot red flags before you pay. Hurricane Helene kept us away last week, so I think everyone is glad to be back. Sorry for the inconvenience of the scheduling, but we're both very fortunate not to have sustained any significant damage.
Yes.
Speaking of Helene, we are going to have Robert Wink back to the channel for kind of an unscheduled special on disaster relief for those of you interested in getting involved in the cleanup that's spread over 6 or more states. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe, tap the bell for notifications so that you'll be notified when we stream that session, which may or may not be on a Thursday. So we have a special guest tonight. I'm super excited to introduce Dea. She's founder of Divine Sends. Dea, welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here.
So I'm excited to have you. For those of you in the audience who don't know Dea, she's a current government contractor. She just wrapped up a contract, but it wasn't always that way. So she's going to share some of her tips and strategies on sort of navigating these scams. Natasha and I will teach you what to look out for. And, before you hit that buy now button, what you need to know about what's actually possible and what isn't really. So let's start at the beginning. Dea, how'd you get involved in this industry? Tell us about yourself.
Well, it kind of, I guess I had a couple little small intros before. So before becoming the founder, before founding Divine Sense, my current business, I was an attorney and I was working in the Office of General Counsel at the state level. And in the Office of General Counsel, sometimes we touched on issues of procurement there. Mm-hmm. So most of what I was doing, and it was just for a brief period of time, and some of the work that I was doing, we do memoranda of understanding between agencies, or, I might review like a couple government leases. So I really wasn't all that familiar with it once I started my business. I knew what it was. I kind of knew what some of the certification programs were, but I had never really done anything to try and move in that direction. And truthfully was a little hesitant because I know how much is involved with anything that you do with the government. And so I was like, do I want to do this? It seems like it's going to be a lot of work. I don't understand it. I'm going to have to get educated. I don't know where to begin with it in terms of on this side of it, in terms of the business. And so I kind of avoided it until 2019 when I think the Maryland National Guard, somebody from a contact there, their prime contractor reached out and was like, hey, we'd like you to come in and do some wellness work for the children of military families. And I was like, sure, I'm kind of my dad's in the military. I have a military family. And so I was like, yeah, I'll come in and do it. And so kind of just floated as a subcontractor passively without like exploring anything more for a while and continued to work with them through this year. And then I think about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago-ish, I was like, well, maybe I need to go back and revisit this because, I like what I'm doing. I know that, the VA does a lot of work with yoga and wellness. So maybe I want to start looking into them. And so I think it was through the Maryland Minority Business Development Agency. They put me, I think I had seen something on there about government, federal contracting, and they had an accelerator through Govology. And then I was like, oh, this sounds great. I think it was grant funded or whatever. And so I didn't have to pay to get into it. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need if I'm going to try and do this. And so signed up for that. That's where I met Ashley. And then I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. Somebody's just going to sit here and teach me how to do this. And I didn't have to pay because that was a promotion that was happening through Maryland's program. And so that's kind of like how I got more comfortable, and everything that I've done so far in terms of government contracting has been either as prime or as sub at the state level or at the federal level. It's all been micro purchases, which I'm very happy with as a
yeah, they add up for sure.
very happy with it as a solo entrepreneur because I don't be able to handle much more. But kind of with the training that Ashley, through Govology and the other support that I've had, it's been enough. Of course, I can use more, but it's been enough to keep everything growing. And so that's kind of like how I got started in it.
So you had kind of an advantage because I remember we talked about some of these scams that we're going to talk about today during that cohort. And a lot of what we talked about, and a lot of our audience can chime in here, guys. If you have been duped or scammed, or you signed up for something that didn't give you the outcome that you thought it was going to be, let us know in the comments, and we're happy to take your questions. So whether you're joining us on Facebook or on YouTube, the comment section works. I can finally see them both, so comment away. But the first thing when you make the decision to get registered in government contracting is that inevitable SAM spam that comes.
All the time.
All the time. Like you have to, make sure that your information's not private. You want to update your DSBS profile, but at the same time, you got to kind of take the good with the bad and be able to sift through those emails. What are some of the best practices that you learned over time, Dea, to kind of make sure that you're separating the BS from the legitimate?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten the emails, and this has been like, I guess I've had probably a SAM profile for almost 2 years now. And so there was a flurry in the beginning, which, Govology had already warned me about. I don't think I knew. I might have signed up. I think I tried to create a SAM profile before. I don't know, something happened, or maybe there was an overlap in the time period. But either way, I started getting the the GSA schedules. Those emails came in first.
Oh.
That they came in first, and they were like, "Hey, they're coming in hot. Get on this schedule so you can get this contract." And I'm like, I've looked at some of these contracts. Like, for the federal government, there's no way I'm just going to willy-nilly like get on the schedule when I'm not sure that I can actually like fulfill the contract, like terms and criteria. Like, I don't even want to be on the schedule. So that just freaked me out because I'm kind of scary. So it did, like, I'm just afraid of like committing to something that I can't fulfill. So
I'm sure being an attorney, you're also very risk adverse as well. Yeah. So, you're sure that that's not
absolutely. And so I got the emails. I get text messages now. I was getting text messages. It was when I initially signed up. I still get them now. Everything has a link in it, of course, and they're trying to get you to click on this or click on that. I don't click on any links because I'm terrified of that too. And risk averse. That sounds better. And so with all of and sometimes I get calls. I don't get very many calls, and I screen them anyway, because usually, like, if you're using Google at all, like for your phone or whatever, it'll identify a scam likely. So that's been very helpful, because then I'm not, constantly picking up the phone thinking that this is like a legitimate opportunity when it's not. So for me, even when and I'll start with the phone calls first. When I get the phone calls, anybody who's trying to sell me anything, send me an email. I'm not going to entertain anything that you're talking to me about over the phone. I don't know who you are. I didn't make contact with you first. So I need you to send me an email, put all the information down in writing, and then we'll go from there if I'm interested.
Oh, I like that. I've never thought of that.
If they don't do that, I don't consider them to be legitimate.
Fair enough.
Like, if you're not willing to commit to writing, and again, that's that attorney thing. If you won't put it in writing, then I'm not going to entertain it. So that gets rid of a lot in terms of phone. Text messages, I ignore those too, because most people don't initiate business with you through text messaging.
No, no, they don't.
Not anybody legitimate.
No.
And so then we get to emails. And so even with emails, if I don't already know you, I'm not familiar with your organization, I haven't signed up or subscribed to anything. I didn't meet you through like a SCORE webinar, or I wasn't introduced to you through a SCORE webinar, SBA, Apex, one of the small business liaison offices, or MBDA. I don't assume that you're legitimate. Like, I don't know where you found me, and I'm not familiar with you. So the emails, if they can't say, hey, you know, I worked with you, or, you know, this, you're getting this because you subscribe through this webinar, I usually just kind of assume that everything that I don't identify as affiliated with an organization or something that a subscription that I did, I assume everything is a scam. It's just
Yeah, it's the best way to proceed. And I gotta say, what I've seen more this year and last year start to come about, in addition to everybody needs a GSA schedule to do business with the government, which is unbelievably not true. Clearly, because Dea still gets contracts and she doesn't have a schedule. So if market research, my caveat there is, if market research says that the government buys what you sell on a schedule, I would put it on my long-term plan. But don't make someone convince you to pull that trigger before you're ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a significant investment. But now what I'm seeing is subcontractor, newer businesses, they're getting involved in government contracting, and they get this prime that reaches out to them, and they have an opportunity. And, the email at first glance will look legit. We can't use the .mil or .gov rule like we can with SAM spam.
Yeah.
So there, you have to go the extra mile to verify that sender. So I've had clients submitting, pieces of a proposal, that came to me after the fact and said, hey, I got this weird email. This is what I submitted. Come to find out there was some intellectual property included.
Yeah.
That's another area. And if you've paid someone to do your SAM registration in the past, I highly recommend you submit a notarized letter to the Federal Service Desk. We do have a video on our channel for how to do that. It does have to be notarized on your letterhead. And what that will do is it will make sure that you, as the business owner, have rights over your registration and allow you to remove that third party. There have been several instances where SAM registrations have been hijacked by bad actors, and the business owner is left with an inactive SAM and they can't accept their contract because there's no cage code active. So definitely protect yourself in that respect as well when it comes to your profiles.
I would also go above and beyond to say that also when people are responding to you, and I know that a lot of people have Gmails and Yahoos, and I'm not against it, but I won't do business with people that do. Like, if you have a Yahoo and a Gmail, then you're not serious, because it's like $5 to get a company like email, right? It's not a whole lot. So if you're an official company and that wants to do business with me, get a decent email. Because I have seen, I'll use an example of one of my clients, and this is before they became a client, because they would have never done this if they were. They got a purchase agreement, and it was, hey, listen, they never bid on the work, but they got a purchase agreement, and they were eager McBeaver to get started on the work, and it was a big contract. I think it was like $600,000. And in the government, it was send us these computers and send us all these assets. And
I saw that.
And then they did, and it was overseas, which is like bing, 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 the first alarm, right? But the purchase agreement, like, they went above and beyond. They made it look like an actual government purchase order, which they got their hands on one, and they just probably edited in PDF, and they made it to their organization, and they shipped all those computers overseas. Never received payment, and never heard from the organization again. They just disappeared into the dust.
And they had to eat all that money.
They had to eat all the money that they had to pay their vendors for those computers. So
that is so unfortunate.
You have to be very, very careful and question. I always question. I've also had one where they had GovWin, and they made their payment quarterly, and they had the email of the GovWin pay person, like the actual email of the person. And somewhere in there, they were able to edit the name so that when you saw it, it looked like it came from that person. But if you double clicked on it and tried to forward or respond, it changed the email to like a Gmail. I don't know how they did it, but looked like official. So they reached out to one of our clients and had stated, hey, listen, we're changing our ACH information. and sent out a form with Delta's logo and everything on it, and said, here, this is the information, update your ACH information for your next payment. Now, this is a company that was paying almost over $100,000 in products. So I think they sent over like more than six figures worth of payment in their quarter.
That is painful.
Yeah,
and
gone.
Furthermore, to those Gmail email addresses, I had somebody just the other day arguing with me in one of these groups about how she's won contracts and nobody's ever said anything about her Gmail email. Well, I have to say that Gmail is not secure. There is a reason that CMMC requirements, which is the cybersecurity maturity model, mandate the controls for the Microsoft Business Plan.
Yeah.
So if you're using a free ESP, you are immediately a high risk in the DoD's mind.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to play in the big contracts with agencies like the VA and DoD, now keep in mind I say VA because they're protecting veteran healthcare information. So think about HIPAA.
You got CFI information too.
In 2019, the Department of Veteran Affairs told contractors, look, guys, $12, because that's I think what it was back in that time, is just a cost of doing business with the government. They will not even answer they don't even get your Gmail. So if you're marketing and spending these efforts and you've hired for your capability statement and you're hitting the ground running, boots to the ground, you're just spamming a wall because they're not getting it.
Yep.
So if you're frustrated that they're not responding to you, make sure you're sending from a secure domain.
Mm-hmm.
It would really be terrible if you went to submit a source of sought or an RFI or RFP from your Gmail email and nobody ever got it because the firewall blocked it.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's very common for us to want to make sure that we've checked all our boxes. And sometimes I think the approach of a scammer is the intent is to fear you into action. You don't know what you don't know. So it's always like, oh, your Sam's about to get on register. You won't be able to do business. And oh my goodness.
Something's wrong with your DSBS profile. Call us now.
And it's that fear tactic. So anything in regards to fear, it's like you're terrified. So you just want to easily solve it and give money away. So you have to be very, very conscientious of that. Is it an emotional transaction that you're performing? Maybe take a step back and then come back when you're calmer, look at it and say, is this real? And then come from that perspective.
I'm going to come back to that emotional transaction because we're going to talk about the other side of the coin in a moment. But we did get some great advice from a member of our audience that I wanted to make sure to share. So all emails have a friendly name. The scammers put a fake email to fool people. So when you hover over your settings to always show, you can see the real email.
Yeah,
that's great advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
That's also one of the things I do. Whoever, and when you don't have an existing relationship with someone, this happened with one of the recent contracts that I had. The micro purchases, like they found me on one of the vendor databases that I had submitted my information into, and so they contacted me. I didn't know if this person was who they said they were. Now it looked like it was legit. I definitely wanted to pursue it. But I don't, like you just mentioned, I don't react emotionally. So I see who the contact's name is. I go and I put it into Google. I'm immediately Googling whoever that person is who contacts me, who I don't know. And then I'm looking to see if they have a LinkedIn profile. Almost everybody has a LinkedIn profile. And yes, there's some issues with LinkedIn too. But if I see that you have a .gov, it's a legit .gov email address. And then I'm also finding you on LinkedIn, and I can see like a work history there. Something is popping up. There's a picture of you. So then with that, I'm kind of like, okay, so there is something going on here. This person looks legitimate. Right. Then I'll reach out. I'm not going to only do any conversation solely through email. We have to have a phone call. We have to have a video chat or something. And then, we move forward from there. And one of the first questions I'm going to ask is, where did you find me? Just for marketing, like to make sure the marketing is working.
You have to check your source. That's true. What's working, what's not.
Yeah. And then secondly, like like, are you legit? Like, did I actually list myself there? Did Ashley actually, would Ashley have told you this, right? So, or is it something else? And so that's one of the things that I found that kind of just, gives me another layer of like, okay, this person is who they say they are. On the flip side, though, because I think that, for me, I think maybe it's just because of my background, but I think identifying that someone is actually from the government is easier in those situations because of the .gov.
Yeah.
As
Yes.
long-
The
as long as
.gov or .mil. That's right.
yeah, as long as you're looking at the actual, drop down for that email. But on the flip side of it, like when I'm looking for a consultant, like, somebody who like, cause, working with Ashley or whoever, because I need a little bit more help with like proposal writing or something like that, then I ignore all of those. I ignore everything that's a cold call in that way. I don't just randomly contact people who I see have done, a video on YouTube who say that they're doing it. It has to come from like a reputable agency. If SCORE, SBA has hired you, Apex has hired you to come in and do this, I'm more likely to follow up with you and ask you, hey, can we consult together? Because I know that there is some track record, there's some link, somebody knows you who's already in this area. And for me, I think that there's, even before I got to the point where I was like, hey, Ashley, I want to hire you. Before I even got there, I took advantage of a lot of the free resources first, because there are so many.
And I encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah.
Because there's, building a business, this is what you're doing. You're building a business for a long-term relationship with the government. So taking that time and utilizing all the free things, MBDA, Apex Accelerator, they're great to help you with the basics.
We're start with your money. I mean, I'm all for investing in your business, but if you can start, like, you're starting small, if you're like a micro business and you're literally just yourself, there's no reason to spend. I think I heard someone spend like $10,000 to $20,000 on a course to learn about government contracting. And I was like,
that brings me to the other side of that coin, right? Some are playing on your fear. And now since COVID happened, we've got this whole new thing where they're playing on your hopes and your dreams to sell you a course or a mentorship or some sort of high ticket product that's going to make you rich quick. And guys, this is not the industry for that.
No, it's very targeted.
Like, have I been able to assist a client, who put in the effort within 3 to 6 months, get a government contract? Yes, absolutely. But that's not the norm. That's the exception, right? I've done that for a client who had DoD experience, who worked on past contracts. I did that for a client who had a new idea that he wanted to sell to the government, and he had an IDIQ written for him, but they are the exception. They're not the mass.
Yeah. So I always think that, like, I think I'll second that, but I think that you can always tell the difference if the person's selling you a course or a service or a mentorship is your hype man, but doesn't add any risk. Not everything in this world is like so easy. And I think we all know this, right? In the back of our minds, and I've heard a million people tell me this, it just sounded too good to be true. And it's like, well, then it probably is. Because that's
trust your gut there. Right? Absolutely.
Like, that's your warning sign. That's like, this is probably BS. There's more to it than that. Yes, people, of course, they win millions of dollars of contracts. I've seen it all day long. But it's definitely not that easy. And it's not everything that people say it is. I think it's just all of the hype. And let's not talk about any of the realness, so any of the truth behind it, and the actual work that goes behind that it takes.
That's true. I mean, just the hours that I spent on the response that I submitted, and I wasn't feeling super great about it. That's like 35 hours now that I'm not going to get back that I could have used on something else for a maybe. And you have to be ready to make an investment like that. And that's just the realistic approach to business. Outside, heck with government contracting, we're in business to make money. So, for those of you who are just starting that don't have an established business, get a customer. Learn, how to process that sale. Set up your automations. Are you going to welcome your customer? What's your onboarding process look like? Start working through those things. That way you're ready for the government. And once you have put in the work for the foundation, we'll call it, being able to tell from what you're seeing on social media if something is too good to be true. Let's just say it'll be good practice, right? And you'll be able to trust your gut when you see the actual work that goes into some of these functions.
Yeah.
I mean, what takes me 35 hours probably would take Natasha a heck of a lot shorter. So
I don't know why you hit me up.
because I wanted to suffer through it. I wanted to do it myself.
I mean, like pain.
And besides, it was just an RFI. When the RFP comes out, I will be calling the process.
I think social media really should be the last resort in terms of trying to obtain education. Like, unless you've already identified, like, if I already know that I can go to Duo Dev, and then that's going to be good. So I can follow Ashley on, YouTube, or Natasha. But just randomly, like, starting there with the YouTube video of how do I start government contract, I just don't think that that's the best way to start. I think you have to make sure that it's somebody reputable, who ideally somebody who's already worked on the government side of government contracting. That was one of the things that was really appealing to me about Ashley, was because she had already worked on that side. And it was obvious because she knew everything, as we went through everything. And so I was like, no, she's who I need to start with, because I don't understand what a GSA schedule is. And, when I've done a longer proposal than some of just the micro purchases. I haven't had an opportunity to submit those yet. But even with that, like, I was like, okay, I want somebody else to take another look at this. I'm pretty comfortable writing proposals because of just my background. But at the same time, I've never done it for this purpose. So when it got to that level, I was like, no, I absolutely already know who to call. And I didn't have to go necessarily to YouTube, because I had already watched so many of the free webinars from the legitimate sources who got me ready to the point where I had a specific enough ask that I was ready for a consultant. And then I had already, through the webinars, been able to identify a consultant to work with.
So in what she's talking about, guys, for the audience who might not be aware, Dea was engaged with her MBDA and Apex Accelerator. And these resource partners oftentimes, have access to Govology on-demand training. This is accredited training. So when you're out there looking at your professionals, the difference between those of us who were raised in the DAU asylum and the people that maybe won a couple of contracts a time or two is the fact that we are trained acquisition professionals. I would dare them last a moment in the asylum that we were raised. Defense Acquisition University is no joke, right? So any of you, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. I know we have a group of 1102s and project managers who know what I'm talking about that watch the show. But nonetheless, just because they won a contract or two does not make them an expert in your industry. These industries operate differently. These agencies operate differently. They each have their own supplemental rules. What worked for Joe down the street is not going to work for Joanna, and vice versa. It depends on a lot of different factors. So just don't fall to some of these gimmicks. I see a lot of clickbait right now, how you can win millions of dollars in 90 days. And
you don't need past performance or experience.
You don't need experience. And
I have to work with you.
Yeah, there's really only this many contracts that's actually feasible in. So
I want 5 million in 2 weeks. I want to see your gross profit margins. Fine.
Yeah, there's a reason the Word Dog guys went to jail, right?
And I think for those people who, like, I wouldn't dream. I've only had like I've had a handful of micro purchase contracts. And so I can't even imagine trying to put myself out there to, even with the background I have, I would never dare to try and advise anybody how to, go after, a 6-digit, contract with VA. I wouldn't even dare. I wouldn't even dare to I'd be like, hey, you can call Ashley or somebody else. But so it's interesting to me that, kind of, I guess, that people are so trusting. I don't know, but I might have trust issues. But either, but it works though. It works though if you have them, right?
You have an asylum of protection around your enemies. You're like, nah, I'm good. But
well, here's the thing I'll point out.
And that is, it's not a bad thing. I think that's always a good thing. You want to believe the best in people. And sadly, we live in a world where there are people that take advantage of that. And that's not everyone, because there's plenty of people I help for free. And I don't expect a thing out of it. I just want you to succeed. Your win's my win. But not everyone thinks like that. Some people are just like, well, for $20,000, I can help you win $1 million. And people will spend their last. I have had people willing to work 2 jobs just to pay a fee. And I'm like, guys.
I had a woman remortgage her home to purchase one of these courses. And I am not going to mention the name because the lawyers say no. But she was in tears, wondering what she's going to do now. And she's no closer to a government contract. She's even more confused than when she started. But I will say, to your point, Dea, I don't really think it's just you, because the difference is with this process in place that you are vetting, you've not been scammed.
Yeah.
It wasn't for their lack of trying. It's just that you were diligent. And that's the message that we wanted to make sure the audience took away with them.
Right.
And you achieved it. You're winning government contracts and you're still protecting yourself.
Yeah. And she's setting herself up for the next win while she's working on that contract. So she's working the strategy, and I could not be more prouder of you.
Patience works. Patience works.
Yeah, but Ashley is right when she said I had a leg up by, kind of Maryland already offering through the MBDA, the GovConHacks, and introducing me to, people who already have, like, worked in the government. And that was like invaluable. And I had to pay $0 for it. Like, I didn't have to pay anything, and they still have like that agreement with the state right now. I'm not sure that that's true in other places, but like, there's so many resources that I've found that, there are places where you can learn about it for free first. And then that's how you find the good people. Before I forget, I wanted to talk about kind of the third scam that I had been introduced to.
Okay.
Which is from a prime. So this was at the state level. It wasn't at federal level. And so I was kind of just doing my thing as a regular business. It was before I started to get more involved in government contracting. And so someone reached out to me. I think, I'm not sure where this prime was finding people, but they were looking all over, and they apparently had secured a contract to do wellness work for in juvenile services. Okay. And so I get the call, and she's like, hey, yeah, so-and-so mentioned your name. I looked you up on Google. Your business looks great. I'm wondering if you come in and if you would be willing to do weekly wellness sessions with the youth. And she was like, I'm excited. I didn't even think I was going to get this contract, but I got it. And I'm like, okay, so what are you thinking? So we get into details, and then she's like, yeah, if you could just come and do like 2, how many locations can you do each week? And she's like, oh, could you do up to 3? And I'm like, okay, well, how long? So I'm asking for details. Like, I don't know this person, but she's talked to someone else who knew about my business and said, hey, try her. And so this first conversation is the contact that I have with this person. So I'm asking a million different questions, because, like, what's your business? I'm writing the name down because I need to look you up. Are you a real business? Like, is this all real? And so before I even got to the point where I needed to research her, she told me that, well, I'm going to be leaving to go to Africa for 3 months. And so I'm hoping that you'll just perform this entire contract for me, and then I'll pay you when I get back in, stateside in 3 months in December. And I was like,
I don't know how that works.
And I was like, this conversation is over because I can't with you. And so, like, that just in the course of asking these questions, and I want to say we might have been on the phone, because I'm kind of, if I don't know who you are, we don't have prior dealings with each other. Of course, I'm polite, but I have a lot of questions for you, because who are you? And, this sounds sketchy that you bid on this contract, you won it, but you have no intention of performing this, because you've already told me that you've bought your ticket to another country that you're going
Why did you even bid on it if you knew you couldn't fulfill it?
Yeah.
So then she won the award, and then she tried to find the sub, basically.
Exactly.
Middleman approach.
Tell me you don't know what you're doing
Really
without
bad.
telling me.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I don't know if we got to. I don't even know if we got to price, because once I heard that, like, you're looking for someone to perform this contract for you, and so I think one of the last things I said to her was, why would I work for you to do this entire contract when I could just bid on it myself and I'm going to be stateside? And then I was like, there's nothing else. I'm not going to be able to help you with this. And so that was probably the most bold. She was the most bold encounter that I've had. But I want to say after that, another call came in maybe a couple months later. So I want to say this was probably in the first 2 years or so when I opened my business. Like, I got some of these and I was like, I don't even know all the details of this, but this just sounds shady and I don't want to work with you. And how are you going to? And then, like, one guy, like the second person who called with a similar offer, was telling me that my rates were too high. I'm sorry, but your rate is just too high. It's not my fault that you bid on this. You got this contract and you didn't include me in your services. So no, I'm not doing it for you. So there's that happens.
That is okay. So the second that is a common thing. The middleman approach. Everyone is like, oh, you don't have to do the work. You can just sub it out. They sub it out. They don't understand anything about teaming agreements, about having a negotiation or a subcontracting plan, a discussion for payment, nothing, because they don't have any of the business acumen outside of, I can just subcontract someone else to do the work and I'll collect payment. And then it doesn't work out, but they get the award. They still have to perform the work to get payment, right? So then they start looking for a subcontractor. And either before they get the contract, they start reaching out for quotes without really understanding. So they just want you to do all the work. Or they do it afterwards, which I've had people reach out to me and they're like, I want this contract, but the subcontractor wants payment. And I was like, yeah, that's how that usually works. And they're like, what do I do? I was like, what? You got to do the work, bro. You got to cut that grass. Like, it was a year of, I think they won like $140,000 contract to cut grass. And he was like, I don't know what to do. I don't cut grass. And I was like, then why you bid on it?
You're going to cut it today.
I was like, it's not that easy. You're still on the hook. The subcontractors, not you are. So they go out and they start calling. I think we've noticed that with janitorial. But janitorial companies just stopped answering the phone. They got a million people calling them and saying, hey, listen, I got a job for you. And you think it's a real job, but it's not. It's them trying to push all the work onto you and make some money off of your labor. And some subcontractors don't like that. They don't like that at all.
Yeah, so I'm one of them.
And then there's like good old fashioned logic, right?
Yeah.
So if I want a contract, or if I'm bidding on a contract, I'm gonna look to see what the government paid for, who'd they buy it from last time. So if I see that this certain, we'll call it food supplier, has won this contract for the last 20 years since we've been tracking data, am I going to call US Foods for a quote? Probably not. So if you don't do your homework to some level before you get in a position where either you've signed on the dotted line and don't have a sub, or, you know, even you've submitted your price at that point, what happens if you win? It's not going to be the sub whose neck is on the line. That's your CPARS review.
Correct.
Get a bad CPARS review and you might as well just hang it up, guys, because it's not going to work. It's not. And again,
there's a good way to do middlemaning, but it has to be the right way, which means that you are still in charge of that contract. You're still managing it. You're still in charge. It's your business. It comes with
bring value to the deal.
Yes.
I say that all the time. Value added reseller is
everything.
A better approach to the market.
I mean, with that said, I mean, I'm not going to accept nonsense, but I am still like, even right now, like I've been exploring partnering and like teaming with people. So it, that wasn't enough to turn me off, but it was just, that was kind of a good early, like pre-government contracting lesson that, these people are going to kind of be after you with unreasonable expectations. And so just, kind of moving more slowly into and setting up, I think, a process and criteria, like Ashley was saying, for deciding when I will accept a teaming agreement, when I will, come in as a subcontractor for someone, so that you're making sure that it makes sense for you and your business.
Who said that, Ashley? That like subcontracting is like dating. Was that you?
I say that all the time.
Yeah, it's you. And I think I reiterate that a lot now. It's like
it is like dating. Like you don't get married for the first date. You don't,
Did you want to marry her? No. Like, nah, I'm good.
If you're trying to get to a point where you've got a joint venture or mentor protege agreement with a company that's gonna, complement your services well, feed you resources, do trade-offs, like getting to that point, you got to do a couple jobs together.
Yeah.
I have clients that come to me all the time, whether it's at Apex or in my own business, and they're like, I'm interested in the mentor protege program. I'm like, okay, do you have a mentor in mind? Well, no. All right. Well, there's a process, right? A sequence. And the mentor is not going to just funnel all their resources to a stranger. So you want to engage with them, do a couple small jobs, make sure you jive together well. Yeah. They could be, one of the primes that are out here trying to eat our small businesses alive. So you don't really know who you're dealing with until you've worked together. They say that when you're dating, you don't really know each other till you live together. Well, kind of the same thing, different industry.
Yeah, that's true.
Industry.
different industry. But different. It's late.
I do have another question for you guys. It's technically a scam, but what is this that I'm hearing about, which I have not experienced yet, and I'm hoping I don't, that when you're a subcontractor specifically for federal government, that payment issues with your prime.
Oh yeah.
What is this something you guys see a lot? And does it ever amount to a scam, for the like a scam on, impacting the subcontractor?
That's a good question. And the first place that I see this arise is going to be in the CTA and the contractor teaming agreement, because think about it. Let's say you're in negotiations with a prime, you want to work together on a project, you sign the NDA, you meet about the requirements, work's moving forward. The prime typically is going to slide their agreement template, this boilerplate template that's, the lawyers drew up, that's obviously all in their best interest. Mm-hmm. And here's where you have to, you just have to be diligent. It's a good idea to, if you have a GovCon attorney, have them review it. This is your opportunity to negotiate terms. And to speak directly to your question, Dea, where I see it the most is when the primes will try to say, oh, payment will be, basically the sub will get paid after the government pays the prime. The prime contractor having the contract should not have bid on a contract where they were codependent on getting paid by the government in order to pay you. That would be the first red line I would do. No, I want paid net 30 or whatever your payment terms are. So keep in mind that the first draft of that CTA that you're going to get is, and a lot of times, a pile of trash. You're going to want to spend the extra time refining it. And if you just sign it and turn it back over, they're also going to look at you a little less seriously too.
Yeah, they do. They expect you to have little red lines through that.
If you're not going to advocate for yourself, then who's going to? They're going to, got one over on her, Yeah. So be cognizant of that CTA. That was one way. We did have a question. Primes trying to eat small businesses alive. That's one way. The payment issues is the primary way. What are you seeing post-award, Natasha, as far as the primes and payment are concerned?
So there is a lot to, like, you have to come up with a subcontracting plan. Your TA agreements really is good just for the whole solicitation portion of it. But once you're awarded, there should be a subcontracting plan where essentially all the agreement that the prime gets in with the contracting officer then trickles down to the subcontractor. So you're both mutually exclusive and agreeing to the same terms. So nobody's better, nobody has a different kind of term. But ultimately, you want to have a conversation about your payment, and it should be net 30, just like the business. Primes do not have the same rights as small businesses, and primes that are large, those are the ones that do it, to kind of go into the large primes eating small businesses. If you go to a large company, they don't have to get paid for, like, net 45, net 60, net 90 sometimes. But as a small business, you need to get paid within net 15 to net 30, and you need to make that work and have those conversations and those negotiations beforehand, and not be so eager McBeaver just to win the work, because afterwards I have seen large companies that even have the money and just say, oh no, you don't get paid till we get paid. I was
They'll
like,
squeeze you for every penny they can if you let them.
that was a real payment term they put in Delta. I was like, no, that's not real. They were like, no, you don't get paid until we get paid. I was like, that's not how business works.
But you signed. But you signed. So what can you do about it now, right?
Doesn't have a lot of money to fight a large business. So they're hoping that you just kind of eat it. But it happens.
That's another one, the legal aspects, right? So we had a guest on fairly recently who won a contract who was protested. And she's a small, and the largest came after her. They were just mad, incumbentitis. They were mad they lost the contract. They had had it in years past, and they took her through like 3 different protests. Now she kept the contract and she won, so all is well that ends well, but she had to cough up a lot of legal fees that they didn't anticipate she would be able to do. Yep. So small businesses, when you're out here bidding, mind your P's and Q's. People say, register in SAM. It's easy. It only takes 5 minutes. Here's how you do it. But I watched those videos, the same ones that you saw, and they do not give a legal perspective on the FAR. So let's say you win a contract and the incumbent gets mad. We had a contract protested because the NAICS code wasn't on the SAM registration of the incumbent. We had, or the awardee rather, we had one protested about an incorrect FAR response. And if you're not answering those correctly, that protest could hold up. So I would hate to see you go through all this trouble, not know what you're, answering and responding, and then end up in a situation where now you have to invest in attorney fees to keep the award that you just got, and then come to find out you made a silly mistake on your SAM and lose it. Like that's worst case scenario, right? That doesn't happen all the time. But they will use their money to muscle you around, intimidate you, or if you're a machine shop, buy you out. Machine shops used to be a dime a dozen. Where are they now? They're scarce, few and far between. Why do you think that is? The prime bottom all.
Yeah,
eliminated competition.
Even like there was one where sometimes in regulations, they're counting that you don't know what they know. We have those conversations a lot. No one's reading the FAR, right? But you still have to reference it if it's in a solicitation. And you have to make sure that you know what you're signing up for. We had a small business sign up with a large prime on a huge, like, $1 billion contract. And they were just so excited to have a piece of the pie that they were given a location to provide staff services versus facility maintenance. And it was, it seemed like a very robust multi-year award contract for millions of dollars. Easy, right? No, they didn't know that it was a SEA, and they didn't know what SEA was. And this is one of those things where the prime went to them and said, well, this is the wrap rate you're allowed to use, and this is the escalation you're allowed to use. Not what you want, but what we say. And so that they did. They were, again, eager McBeaver, truly happy just to win the contract, right? Not realizing all the cost that comes with managing SEA employees, the fringe rate and wage and determinations and everything that comes with that, and the DOL audits. their profit margin, I think, ended up to be negative 8%.
Oh,
They lost money. Like they were in a subcontracting plan that they signed that they couldn't just drop or they'd get sued. So they had to perform 4 years of the work at a loss.
Oh,
oh, that's terrible. That's painful.
Like
Now that's not the norm, guys. Don't freak out.
don't freak
But
out. But
it just goes to show you how important those teaming agreements are. And Alex brings up a good point. Most federal contracts state that the primes must submit invoices 10 to 15 days and government pays within 15. There's also, prompt payment incentives built into contracts, things like that. But as a COR, he would get hammered if he went past 15 days. That means the prime got paid within 30. Now, the contingency to that is, and there have been a few stories already that alluded to this, is if you are working with a company who really is not, they don't know what they're doing and they probably should be subbing, but they won this contract anyway, right? They're not going, just them getting the invoice correct in wide area workflow is dependent upon you getting paid, right? So and there could be multiple reasons that somebody inexperienced could cause a payment delay. Just making sure that your head is in the game and you're able to navigate that in case you are the prime. That's the biggest area I see from a prime perspective. They win their first contract and they make a mistake on the invoice.
Or
and then they're waiting to get paid.
Audits delay. Work stops.
Audits delay.
Audits. If they're getting a DCA audit, all payments are stopped until the DCA audit is approved and okay to continue work. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing here is that everyone should move more slowly into government contracts. That's what I'm hearing.
Protecting yourself.
I think yourself with anything.
Everything.
Yourself.
Anything, everything. Like
that's it.
If and a lot of folks are not, not having the law background, if you've been at this, your head's down, you've got your sleeves rolled up for 6-9 months and you're bidding and talking to people and going to networking events, it can feel very daunting. Yeah. So, when that first opportunity comes our way, it's our initial instinct to jump on it. We didn't all, have such a smooth transition, and some of these instincts don't just come naturally to everyone. So as redundant as it might be, while we're not trying to scare you out of government contracting, I hope that you guys can take these tools, implement these, and make sure that just you're aware of the landscape. Because when you're unaware, that's how you get taken. We don't want you all to get taken for your money. We all work hard for our money here.
Oh, God, yeah.
Don't go remortgaging your house for a course. Don't let someone scare you into thinking your SAM is expiring. It can all be fixed, right? Yes. You just have to spend the time and maneuver the red tape. That's all.
I mean, I remember when I did finally get on SAM, I was very anxious to get my first one too. And I was so I still felt that, even though I'm risk averse and scared of everything, don't trust anything. Right. So I still had that desire, this could be great. And how do I get set up? But I realized once, going through that first training, I was there's a lot here. Even as an attorney, I was already familiar with what the FAR was before I got into Govology. But going through all of those regulations, and you really do. And because of the protests, it's better for me. It was better for me to go through and read all of that to make sure that everything that when I signed that and said it was, true, that I could make sure that it was. And so, I think there's no replacement for you doing it yourself and learning it yourself the first couple of times, even if it takes longer, even if it may take a year before you get something. But just even if you don't get that award or, you're not getting anything, you're still getting the value of learning as you go. And that way you prevent yourself from being taken and mistakes and simple mistakes that get you, in trouble later. So,
yeah.
I loved doing that cohort. Can I just say, that was one of my first group coaching experiences was with the Maryland and the Arizona MBDA. So previously I'd always done this one-on-one, but I gotta say, watching everyone's progress, we would teach, they would take the training, then would have a meeting. They overcame their challenges. By the time we met again next week, they had the task completed. Their SAM was active, their DSPS was done, their capability statement was done. We were reviewing them. So that kind of guided learning. I definitely hope that we'll get to do more of that this coming year. So if there are any other MBDAs or Apexes out there, we would love to do group coaching. And it was really great to be able to say, at the end of it, we had 25 to 40 companies for each one. They came out procurement ready. They had an understanding of the regulations. They knew their market. They knew the agencies that bought what they sell. Their marketing assets were ready, and they felt confident in approaching this market. So we did them in a variance. One was 12 weeks. I think one was 4 weeks. But yeah, that was an incredible experience. So I appreciate your joining us and just sharing with us what you got out of that and what your story looked like and how you navigated it, because having that from someone with your experience that's incredible for the audience.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. I'm glad to be here. And I just want to say, highly recommend Top Tier. I would go through another accelerator with you guys. You too, Natasha. Like if you're down for it, like I'd love to hear more.
Girl, I'm a trip. Let's have fun.
We're putting her together a proposal writing boot camp.
Yes. Don't even.
No,
yeah,
please.
I need a boot camp too, I think.
I love
All right, ladies, it's getting late, and once the sun goes down, my brain stops working. So I hope all of you have a great weekend. We will see you next week, same time, same place, and look out for our unscheduled Hurricane Helene special coming up with Robert Wink.
Yep.
Thank you, Dea and Natasha.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.